He was the first swimmer ever to win Olympic gold medals at 200, 400, and 1500 meters. The remarkable Sun Yang. He shocked the world in more ways than one. Boxing's Mike Tyson. The wonder kind of motorcycle Grand Prix racing, Spain's Márquez. And a legend of Formula One, Australia's Sir Jack Brabham. This is the Immortals. He was China's first true superstar of the pool. Sun Yang is a giant of his sport, both literally at 2 meters tall and figuratively. Yang, who first emerged on the world stage at the 2007 World Championships in Melbourne, and the 2008 Beijing Olympics when he was a teenager, has been a towering figure ever since. He has set world, Olympic, and Asian records, and like Michael Phelps, it is his versatility that sets him apart. He is the first ever swimmer to win Olympic gold at 200 meters, 400 meters, and 1500 meters freestyle. Put simply, he can do it all. By the end of his third Olympics at Rio de Janeiro in 2016, he had accumulated 3 gold and 2 silver medals for China in individual events. At World Championship level, he added another 9 individual gold, 2 silver and 1 bronze medals, confirming his status as one of the most decorated swimmers in history. When he broke Australian Grant Hackett's long-standing 1500-meter freestyle world record at the 2011 World Championships in Shanghai, swimming 14 minutes, 34.14 seconds, the 19-year-old had exploded as a new superhero of the sport. Hackett's record of 14:34.56 had been set 10 years earlier, when swimmers were allowed to use bodysuits that were later banned for reducing drag through the water. Many of the records set in those times had remained for inordinate periods. Yang had often trained overseas, particularly in Australia, and believes he has benefited from this.
It is very helpful for me to get training abroad because I can train together with the overseas competitors over there before the Olympics, and that is good for my Olympic preparation. Furthermore, training abroad is good for the pre-race psychological adjustment. I cannot say that I am well prepared this time, but I hope I can build up some good form in foreign climates ahead of the London Olympics.
A year after his world record in Shanghai, Yang was just as imposing at the London Olympics, winning gold in the 400 and 1500 and breaking his own record in the longer race, taking the mark down to 14:31.02. Yang has been a controversial figure, swathed in drug controversy since his 3-month ban by FINA, the world ruling body, after a positive test to a stimulant in 2014. As such, he is a lightning rod for world trouble and strife. In China, he is defended as any legendary sports figure would be, but overseas, the allegations fly. Sun Yang scarcely breaks his beautiful swimming motion through all this. He is already a 3-time Olympian, and he plans on collecting more medals at the Tokyo Games in 2020. By then, he will be almost 29. It shapes up as a perfect rounding out to the career of the greatest Chinese swimmer of all time, and the first male swimmer from his country to win Olympic gold. What remains to be seen is whether he can deliver. What we do know is that in almost every instance up until now, he has. Still to come on the Immortals, the blame game around Sun Yang.
I don't know if it's a rivalry. I think it's a rivalry between clean athletes and athletes who have tested positive, but there should be some good racing.
Sun Yang of China has been a controversial figure in his sport of swimming, although he is one of its greatest exponents. That's at least partly because in 2014, he tested positive to the banned stimulant trimethazidine, serving a 3-month suspension from the sport. The Chinese anti-doping agency gave him a light sentence because it deemed him to have inadvertently broken the drug code. Trimethazidine had only recently been added to the banned list of the World Anti-Doping Authority, and Yang told the authorities that he had used it to manage heart palpitations. "I will take it as a lesson and be more careful in the future." His fellow competitors were not so kind. When he returned to the pool and then competed at the 2016 Rio Olympics, he was branded a drug cheat by the Australian swimmer Mack Horton, one of his strongest rivals. The commentary caused outrage in China, where Yang is a deity.
To us, China, our sports development is gradually growing strong, and other countries might feel threatened by China, that we might go beyond them. They try to use this method to damage the morale of every Chinese athlete, our coaches and staff. I think, to be honest, this is not very good behaviour. I think, to me, to our strong Chinese athletes, this will not affect us, but will instead boost our morale and make us much stronger.
The pain of various doping scandals involving China, going back more than a decade, is still raw, although Sun Yang has been a strong advocate for his country as a growing force in the sport. As for the Olympics in Brazil, an unapologetic Mack Horton beat Yang in the 400 meters freestyle final, the Chinese great taking silver ahead of Italy's Gabriele Detti. But just as surely, Yang would have his moment in Rio. Michael Phelps of the United States, the undisputed greatest swimmer in history, has set the standard for multitasking in the pool. Phelps has won 23 Olympic gold medals, including 13 individual golds, setting landmarks that probably will never be reached by another athlete.
Again, the man can't stop winning!
But Sun Yang's adaptability is impressive, and at Rio in 2016, he would take this to a new level. 4 times in previous major competitions, Worlds, Asian Games, and Olympics, the great Chinese swimmer had come up just short in the 200 meters freestyle. Given that his so-called pet event is the 1500, it is a vastly different proposition, virtually a sprint. At London in 2012, he'd taken silver in the 200 behind Yannick Agnel of France. He was just 0.06 of a second behind Britain's James Guy in the 200 in the 2015 World Championships. They were near misses that he sought to correct in Rio de Janeiro. In the 200 final, South Africa's Chad Leclos set an amazing pace, but in the final 100 meters, Yang charged him down to take the gold in 1 minute 44.65 seconds. The time did not matter. Yang had answered at least some of his critics and broken his own personal hoodoo at the distance. His Rio Olympics had been colored by the allegations, and the pressure may have told, bombing out of the 1500, qualifying 16th fastest to miss the final as the defending champion. But the victory in the 200 was significant because it gave him a set of numbers to treasure. No other swimmer, not even Phelps, had won Olympic gold in the 200, 400, and 1500. Yang has also won a gold medal at 800 meters, which is not an Olympic distance, at the highest level, notably the 2013 FINA World Championships in Barcelona. In that meet in Spain, the Chinese superstar won gold in the 400, 800, and 1500 meter freestyle events, matching Hackett as the only two men in history to achieve that feat at the same event. No wonder they call him the underwater meteor. Up next, the perplexing case of boxing's Mike Tyson. He's polarized followers from the time he stepped into the ring as an angry young man. Mike Tyson can be viewed either as a distasteful figure or an all-time great of boxing. In truth, he is both. He's certainly an immortal of the sport. He is the most destructive boxer to have drawn breath.
It's been interesting to say the least. Now Mike opens up, and the right hand finally dumps him.
His trademark was the quick knockout, with 44 of his 50 wins in professional bouts coming from some of the most brutal KOs the sport has witnessed.
I just don't see him lasting with me. I'll be in just tremendous shape. I'll be in tremendous focus, and I'm gonna just be throwing punches with bad intentions.
He was the youngest ever world heavyweight champion at just 20 when he beat Trevor Berbick in Las Vegas in November 1986. Berbick staggering around the ring before the end of the second round. Tyson was just 178 centimeters and one of the shortest heavyweight champions, but he fought with a searing anger the likes of which had rarely been seen. It was said the angst came from his troubled youth in Brooklyn. Fatherless and roaming the streets, arrested 38 times by the age of 13. Ultimately, he found his place in the ring, winning 50 of his 58 professional fights. And in his golden period from 1985 to 1990, when underdog James Buster Douglas sensationally dropped him to the canvas in Tokyo in 1990 to take his title, he was unstoppable. He regained the World Heavyweight Championship in 1996, beating Frank Bruno, but by then had become a caricature of himself. Tyson had been charged, convicted, and jailed for the rape of Desiree Washington, an 18-year-old Miss Black America contestant in 1992, spending 3 years behind bars. Upon release from jail, he boxed again, made and lost his money, and his life became a circus show. He filed for bankruptcy, having been the world's highest-paid athlete with $28 million in 1990, according to Forbes magazine, even ahead of the likes of Michael Jordan.
I tried so hard in my whole life to get away from being Iron Mike. I'm just not that person no more. Being a young man in my life, and with my mentor coach, Customato, we only believed in conquering the world, but we never knew by conquering the world, you become part of the world, and becoming part of the world, you pick up so many demons and bad habits that, I don't know, you don't like yourself until you have to make that paradigm shift. And it's pretty drastic making that shift when at one point in your life you believed in everything that you did implicitly, then you reach another perspective and you realize everything that you believed in all your life is a lie.
Go down, guys. Go down, guys.
Tyson's final act of self-destruction came in 1997 in Vegas, where he fought Evander Holyfield for the WBA World Heavyweight title. Referee Mills Lane stopped the fight after the third round after Holyfield complained, with justification, that Tyson had bitten part of his right ear off. Television replays showed Tyson spitting out the human tissue in the ring. It remains one of the most infamous acts in all of sports history. Remarkably, although he was banned from boxing and fined $3 million, the ban was lifted by the Nevada Athletic Commission a year later.
Why did you intentionally bite Mr. Holyfield?
I was just, oh man, it's really hard to explain. I was in a rage. I didn't know what was going on. It just happened, and I just went berserk. I was engaging into the fight, and I was getting weak. I was lightheaded from the headbutts, and I was desperate, and I was irate, and I just snapped, and nothing mattered anymore at that particular moment.
Do you feel sorry for what you did?
Yeah, I'm sorry for what I did.
Mike Tyson fought his last fight in 2005 at 38, losing to Kevin McBride in Washington. He was a shadow of the amazing fighter in the black trunks who took the boxing world by storm nearly 20 years earlier. He moved into acting, taking a role in The Hangover, and launching into the talk show circuit, making a documentary with Spike Lee. But his place was in the ring, where he could vent his fury, and legally too. That's where he became an immortal.
May Allah bless you all. Thank you.
Honestly, I didn't expect. Always, I had some confidence in myself for trying to get this title, especially in the second half of the season, but it was so difficult and I didn't expect because it was Lorenzo, Pedrosa, Valentino, my heroes there, and I compete with them, and it was incredible in the end get this title on my first season in MotoGP with 20 years old, because it's a dream comes true, but was really nice.
Marquez is a young veteran of MotoGP racing, having soared to its peak at just 20 years and 266 days, the youngest ever world champion in the Premier class. It was in 2013 that he achieved this feat for Repsol Honda, becoming the first rider since Kenny Roberts in 1978 to win the MotoGP world title in his first season.
Marc, the Academy are awarding you this for not only winning the World Championship in the very first attempt, but also for doing it and being the youngest ever. So absolutely amazing.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Adding world titles in 2014, 16, and 17, he continues to be a groundbreaker and a stunning new superhero of his sport. Marquez was a phenomenon even before he arrived at MotoGP level, winning 2 world titles at Moto2 and the 125cc division. When he added his first Premier-level world title to those 2 in 2013, he became just the 4th rider in motorcycle Grand Prix history to win world titles in 3 different categories, after Mike Hailwood, Phil Reed, and Valentino Rossi. Rossi, the 9-time world champion, was a hero of his growing up in Cervera in Catalonia, northern Spain, where Marquez began riding motocross at just 4. He credited his parents for taking him around to his competitions as he rose through the ranks. Me riding MotoGP is a very good present for them. He and Rossi, who was initially complimentary in his public comments about Marquez, would end up becoming fierce competitors much later.
I feel so good when I speak with him. I feel a lot of respect, and that is so important and makes you proud, no? Because that your hero comes to you and speak with you, that it's a dream comes true.
They clashed famously at the 2015 Malaysian Grand Prix, when Marquez ended up on the deck, crashing out of the race. Rossi was later penalized for his action, deemed in some circles to have deliberately kicked his competitor as they diced. But Marquez has not been daunted by any of the previous superstars of his sport. He merely usurped them.
Of course, I will try. I will try to be the man, to be always there, to fight for more championships. But to be a new age, I think it's a little bit more difficult than win a title.
He lived up to his promise. In 2014, his first defense of the title, he began with an astonishing 10 straight Grand Prix wins. By season's end, he was world champion again, and he had totaled 13 Grand Prix victories, a new record for the sport. Yamaha's Jorge Lorenzo beat him into third in 2015, but Marquez hit back hard in 2016 and 2017 to make it 4 world titles from 5 attempts. Many say he can match Rossi's landmark of 9 total world titles, including 7 titles at the Premier level. Marquez is not so sure. To beat what Valentino did, it's quite impossible. He's a hungry young man. It's not a silly suggestion, and in any case, he's already an immortal. When we return, the legendary Australian and 3-time World Drivers' Champion, Sir Jack Brabham. He built his own car and drove it to a Formula One World Championship, the only man to do so. John Arthur Jack Brabham was the son of a greengrocer, but from his youth, his real interest lay in maintaining the delivery vans run by his father. Brabham also repaired old motorcycles at home as a kid in Sydney, Australia, and became an aircraft mechanic after leaving school. His final calling would be in Formula One motor racing, and he would have a feel for it that was uncommon among drivers accustomed to having their every need met by others. Brabham won 3 World Drivers' Championships, in 1959 and 1960 in a Cooper, and in 1966 with his own car. He was also second in another season, 1967. He changed Formula One racing by convincing Cooper to run with rear-engine cars upon his entry to the sport, and nowadays, this is the norm. With his crop of swarthy black hair, he quickly became known as Black Jack. When Brabham won his first world title for Cooper in 1959, he literally pushed his car across the line to win it at the US Grand Prix at Sebring Raceway in Florida. The Australian's car had run out of fuel with 100 meters to go when he was in a dogfight with the New Zealander Bruce McLaren. Not allowed to seek assistance under the rules, he managed to get his car across the line in 4th and secured the points that he needed for the title as McLaren won the race. It was a triumph for the folklore of the sport. Brabham is a legend of F1, pure and simple, and probably the most hands-on driver in history. I had just as much enjoyment out of being the mechanic and looking after and getting the cars to the line as I did out of driving. He had great rivalries, notably with the English driver Stirling Moss, who thought him a brutal competitor. I would say probably one of the toughest drivers I ever raced against. His 3rd world title in 1966 was equally as storied as the first, where he had walked his Cooper across the line. This time Brabham was 40 and thought past his best, but he had created his own car and team, and he was nothing if not determined. In Zandvoort in Holland at the Dutch Grand Prix, he wore a long beard and carried a walking stick to the grid as a joke on himself. But he won the race and the title. He became the first and only driver to create and run his own car to a world championship. And even before it was all over for him as a driver in 1970, he was making more racing cars than any company in the world. Brabham Racing won the Constructors' Championship in 1966 and 1967. Jack Brabham was the first Formula One driver to be knighted in 1988 and is a member of the Motorsport Hall of Fame, as well as being one of Australia's most famous sports people. He died in 2014. He was an understated champion in an industry full of extroverts and thrill seekers, but still an immortal of sports.